Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Wednesday, the 16th of October, 2024. This is program number 1264, and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website. That's rcistlucia.com. And don't forget, you can download our previous shows on that platform. And we are also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. And please like and share that link as well with your friends and family. The number to call in to tell us what's on your plate this Wednesday, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. That's our mainline number here. And you can also use WhatsApp. If you've got that app, it is 724-0008. That's our WhatsApp number. You can call in, or you can send in a message as well to do just that. Again, that number is 724-0008. And of course, don't forget, you can also send in your messages on our Facebook live stream if you want to share some thoughts on that as well. Some birthday greetings for today, for 16th of October, going out to Shirlene Simmons. Happy birthday to you, Shirlene, and we're hoping that you're having a wonderful birthday celebration. Hope it's a great one. And also to Mr. Elon Prosper. Happy birthday to you, sir. Wishing you a fantastic birthday celebration. Now, as for the history for today, where we go back to the year 1813, where we witnessed in Europe the largest battle in Europe prior to World War I, and that was known as the Battle of Leipzig. And that saw Napoleon's forces defeated by Prussia, Austria, and Russia. In 1900, on this day, Great Britain and Germany signed the Anglo-German Treaty, agreeing to maintain territorial integrity of China and support the open door policy called for by the United States Secretary of State. 1934, more Chinese history. Mao Zedong and 25,000 troops began their 6,000-mile-long march from the south of China to the north and west. 1962, on this day, the Cuban Missile Crisis began as U.S. President John F. Kennedy was shown pictures confirming the presence of the Soviet missiles in Cuba. 1978, on this day, saw a Polish cardinal by the name of Karol Wojtyła being elected as Pope John Paul II. And in 1998, on this day in history, former Chilean dictator General Augusto Pinochet was arrested in London on a Spanish warrant requesting his extradition on murder charges. We now head across to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grizzly Lanes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here today at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, a few days ago, in fact, about 7 days ago, was the 1 year anniversary of the events that effectively kicked off over in the Levant, in the region of the Middle East, known to many as the Holy Land or the State of Israel, an armed conflict between that state, Israel, and the militants from the Hamas Palestinian group. And of course, that was an attack which occurred on the 50th anniversary of one of the many wars fought thus far by that state of Israel with its neighbors. In this instance, the Yom Kippur War, which happened back on October the 7th, 1973. And that was a war which was fought between Israel and I think about four different Arab states, including that of Syria and Egypt. And of course, this part of the world has been facing quite a lot of turmoil. Some may say for thousands of years. When we look back at the history of mankind and the rise of civilizations, that region finds itself between two great civilizations, which are found on two major river systems to the west and south, that of the Nile civilizations of Kemet of Egypt, and to the east and north, the regions largely dominating the Mesopotamian part of that part of the world, the Tigris and Euphrates River civilizations of the Sumerians, and later on the Babylonians, and even later on as well, I think the Akkadians, and many of these civilizations saw that middle ground as an area for fighting it out. And so, one of the oldest known battles recorded and verifiable in history, that of the Battle of Kadesh, occurred in that part of the world. So conflict certainly does go far back, but the conflict that we're seeing and have been seeing over the past couple of decades has largely been as a result of the rise and the creation of the state of Israel within what was Palestinian mandate, as it was known by the British protectorate, and that eventually seeing the creation of a Jewish state. That whole Zionist movement, inspired by many individuals of Jewish descent and ethnicity in the diaspora all around the world. And that whole word diaspora comes out of the Jewish population, and that is because many of those individuals felt that they were without a homeland for a very, very long time. And we've seen the very, very long history of belief in that regard, which goes back into Roman times, the destruction of the temple, and then of course the spread of the population of the Jewish population into other parts of the Roman Empire, into Alexandria, into many other different parts of the Mediterranean, even reaching into places like Rome and afar, and then of course the spread into Europe saw in fact this rise in influence of the Jewish populations in these areas, and unfortunately, due to religious conflict, due to treatment of how they were seen and how they were treated by many places in Europe, the populations of Jewish people quite often came to almost a complete and cataclysmic destruction, extinction, effectively. And in fact, the evidence out there, the genetic evidence, suggests that really and truly there were only a couple hundred, perhaps, surviving Jews, out of which all the population of Europe can now trace themselves. So there was this sort of major funneling event in the history of the Jewish population in Europe, largely because of genocide that happened in periods not even known and recorded in and to known in our current history. But it is in fact evidenced by the genetic evidence available. And of course, these Jews, known as Ashkenazi Jews, in fact, are the pretty much the largest population, I believe, of Jews around the world today. They can find themselves um, identifying through those roots, and of course, that tradition of ill treatment, of xenophobia, of racism, of discrimination towards Jews continued for hundreds and hundreds of years. And just recently, during the week, we spoke to this newfound discovery, or rather, what was known but was confirmed with DNA evidence that none other than Christopher Columbus, the individual who claimed to have in fact discovered the New World, the Americas, although he didn't really claim that because the concept of the Americas wasn't even something that he believed in or knew about. That came a little later, but certainly he is credited for starting off that process of colonization, mass scale European colonization, and from 1492 onwards, that he in fact had was Jewish genetically, and although maybe or not, whether he was a practicing one is not very clear, or whether he in fact had to, as was clearly the case, perhaps he had to hide his identity as a result of persecution, as a result of the Spanish Inquisition that was inflaming the Iberian Peninsula during that century. And so that has been, unfortunately, the very sad story of the Jewish population for quite some time. They have, of course, become tremendously influential, and in particular, the largest population of Jews has been for quite some time, had been for quite some time, not found in Israel, but in fact was in the United States of America. And a lot of that, of course, happened post World War II, or during that whole World War II period. We know of that aspect of history of Hitler and the Nazis and their desire to effectively wipe out that population, and that, of course, led to millions of Jews losing their lives in extermination camps, in concentration camps, through overworking and exhaustion in these work camps, having to be placed in what are known as ghettos, and having to be to wear yellow stars on their dresses and outfits, and of course the continued humiliation of individuals who were undoubtedly very proud individuals, and who over the years were continuously able to do very, very, very well from an economic perspective. And so the loss of Europe was the gain of America, and of course, a significant population of European Jews went across and settled in the United States of America during that very, very difficult and sordid history. And so, of course, as a result of that, the vast majority, well over 2/3 of all Jews, of the 7.5 million Jews in America, are in fact Ashkenazi Jews, coming from that migration to the Americas. And of course, that presence in the United States of America has meant that a great deal of economic power and economic influence has been held by Jewish populations, around the United States, of course, in particular in New York State, where they had the highest level of concentration of Jews. And of course, I should mention that many of them came even pre the World War II era, even before that, certainly. But that influence, in fact, meant that they have tremendous political power and were able to support efforts such as the creation of the State of Israel and ensuring that that state is afforded the backing and support of the United States of America, which of course has become and has been for most of the 20th century and certainly into the 21st century still remains the world's superpower and the world's largest economy, most influential country militarily. And of course, that backing has afforded the Jewish state a level of immense protection in what it seems quite often to be a sea of aggression and disdain coming out of the populations who were, of course, extirpated or sent out or had to find refuge out of Palestine into many other states around Palestine, into Jordan and Egypt and Syria and whatever the case may be. And of course, the reality is before that creation of the State of Israel, the vast majority of the population within the Middle East were Muslims. They were adherents of Islam. And so, of course, there has been this ongoing bitterness, of course, which has effectively been kept in check by the presence of the United States of America and its ability to be able to step in the greater interest of Israel. And to some degree, one can see Israel as this complete outlier. And to some, perhaps, they may even see it as a client state or a de facto state of the United States to some people. But of course, the U.S. influence has been achieved through quite a lot of funding. A lot of funding directly to the state of Israel, yes, but also to countries aligned to Israel. And of course, after Israel being the country that benefits the highest from United States aid, the other one in the mix in terms of aid benefiting from aid is that of Egypt, which has effectively been convinced to take a sort of a hands-off approach to matters regarding Israel in the interest of peace. And so in some respects, you could say that peace had been bought with some of Israel's neighbors in terms of the support that is provided to those countries. Of course, it's not that simple, and there have been many other states that have been far more belligerent towards that of Israel. In particular, the Persian state, Iran, they of course have had a long-standing rivalry and bitterness towards Israel, and of course the occasional confrontations. And so that matter, of course, is still a major one. So, of course, coming now to what we've been witnessing since last year, October the 7th of last year, the response by Israel has been criticized as being overboard, as being not in line with the extent of the loss of life with respect to what Israel experienced. And so the numbers, albeit, of course, they are still quite likely on a daily basis. Um, Lots of loss of life in Israel of Israeli citizens still being injured because of this ongoing battle that's going on. And of course, their defenses come at a very pretty penny. This shield that is available, so to speak, this missile defense system which Israel maintains is very costly. American equipment, in the most part, very costly to each missile fired, costs a tremendous sum. And so it is something that they can only realistically maintain with the support of the United States. And it has come to a point, though, that in terms of the numbers, they are far, unfortunately, the losses are far weighted on the side of the Palestinian population in Gaza in particular. Thus far, the records say that 934 Israeli civilians have been killed as a result of this conflict, and 818 of their IDF forces have lost their lives. Well over 13,000 injured as well. And that figure probably is even higher than that. That's a somewhat of a dated figure from the beginning of the year. And still the matter of individuals who've been kidnapped, abducted, that count is still well over 200. There has also been a tremendous amount of displacement within Israel as well, as it has taken on this battle, this war in Gaza, and as well even in the northern parts and the borders with Lebanon, the Golan Heights. Those regions have also been impacted by individuals having to be displaced. And the estimate was at one point as high as 500,000 people displaced at some point or another, although that number has since come down significantly to around 60,000. So the count, the loss of life count, is somewhere around 1,800 people killed or missing over in Israel. However, in the case of Gaza, that number really, really outstrips and pales in comparison to the case of Israel. And we're speaking of upwards of 42,000 people killed in Gaza. Tens of thousands are missing, and many of those are in fact feared dead as well. The list of wounded individuals is almost 100,000 and rising on a regular basis. And the number of displaced people is somewhere in the region of 2 million individuals, 2 million people who are effectively not living in their homes, who have had to seek refuge in other parts of Gaza and trying to seek refuge in other places. A significant amount of displacement internally, which of course has immense issues in terms of the ability for people to feed themselves, the living conditions in where places are. We well appreciate that Gaza, it was already a very, very, one could say even overpopulated area. The population of nearly 2.1 million. And just imagine, in that population of 2.1 million, 1.9 million estimated to have been displaced. It's pretty much almost the entire population has been impacted in some form or fashion in Gaza. And the issues of loss of life have clearly been tremendous. But of course, people losing their life as a result of famine, ongoing famine in Gaza is a real issue. And in fact, we have seen in the past couple of days that battle has spread, and we've seen new players coming in. Of course, Hamas and its presence in Lebanon to the north of Israel has caused for the spread of that conflict on the ground there, and in other parts of the Middle East. But the situation in Gaza is very, very, very bleak. The estimates coming out of some of these humanitarian agencies is that 96% of the population is facing food insecurity, and nearly 500,000 of those individuals are facing near famine hunger. So that issue has been a major one, of course, because of the reality of the Israeli blockade. And there has apparently finally been some effort to see that change. And the United States, in fact, had to make an ultimatum to the state of Israel that if they did not allow for humanitarian aid and assistance to go through within a period of time, within 30 days, they would in fact take action. I think we've got a clip that takes in that. I think it's coming out of Al Jazeera. Let's take a listen.
Israel's closest ally, the United States, warned it would restrict its military support if Israel doesn't improve aid to Gaza in 30 days. It is the strongest such warning since Israel's war with Hamas began a year ago. Previously, the US wrote to Israel in April to demand more aid to the war-torn Strip. At the time, Israel made changes to let 300 to 400 trucks enter Gaza per day, but Washington officials say that number had since fallen by more than 50%. On Tuesday, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller outlined a letter State Secretary Antony Blinken and Defense Chief Lloyd Austin wrote to Israeli officials on Sunday. It cited burdensome and excessive restrictions Israel was imposing on commercial imports, goods, and human movement. It says Israel must in 30 days let a minimum of 350 trucks to enter Gaza per day, institute pauses in fighting to allow aid delivery, and revoke evacuation orders to Palestinian civilians when there is no operational need.
We know that it's possible to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza. We know it can be done. We know that the various logistical and bureaucratic obstacles can be surmounted. And so it is incumbent upon the government of Israel to surmount those challenges and get assistance in.
Sunday's letter cited Section 620I of the U.S. Foreign Assistance Act, which prohibits military aid to countries that impede delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance, and a national security memorandum that gauges the credibility of Israel's assurances its use of U.S. weapons does not violate U.S. or international law. An Israeli official in Washington said the letter had been received and was being reviewed. Separately, Washington also proposed a new channel for the U.S. to raise and discuss civilian harm incidents with Israel, though the administration's criticism of Israel's actions in Gaza was balanced with military support, announcing the same day as the letter that Israel would be sent more U.S. troops and advanced THAAD missile batteries. The State Department also raised concerns with Israel over its bombing campaign in Beirut.
We made those concerns publicly. I'm not going to speak to it in any detail from here, but we have had quite detailed conversations with the government.
Can you elaborate on that nature? Is it the number of high civilian deaths? Is it them seemingly targeting like civilian infrastructure?
It is largely the civilian toll.
Lebanon says Israeli strikes have killed at least 2,350 people over the last year and left nearly 11,000 wounded. The toll does not distinguish between civilians and combatants, but includes hundreds of women and children.
Right, and then of course that update giving you a sense as to the current state of play, and according to
this is Democracy Now, Democracy Now.
Sorry about that. There is, apparently some movement in that regard in terms of aid, finally coming through to individuals who no doubt need it. Of course, this is merely humanitarian aid, and we definitely do know that this matter is a very, very, very unfortunate one as it continues to pan out. because one can say that Gaza has been dependent on humanitarian aid for quite some time, even before that. But it's obviously not to this point, not to this extent, where people are in fact facing death via starvation, and so certainly this matter is a 21st century travesty that continues to be unraveling within the midst of great wealth. And of course, Israel has been able to get itself to become considered a developed country with a very high standard of living. And no doubt about it, I'm sure the individuals in Palestine want to be able to enjoy a similar standard of living. But the matter, of course, of how to deal with the matter politically remains a very difficult one. And we know the issues of land. We know the issues of proposals on the table in the past, the Camp David Accords, the two-state solution, which has been proposed many times. But where we're at now certainly is perhaps one of the worst in terms of that journey to realize long-term peace in the Levant. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll take in our weather report.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Juguruzi Lakes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and things, sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, to the 1.1 is approximately, time for the weather. Of course, weather report is brought to you by Island Style, Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing from the east near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy at times with some scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy at times with widely scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook, moist and unstable conditions will cause some widely scattered showers and possibly isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. A tropical wave associated with an area of low pressure is located over the central tropical Atlantic. It's moving westward near 12 miles per hour or 19 kilometers per hour. The system has a medium chance of tropical cyclone formation during the next 7 days. And this was the weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy.
Chicken sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. We've got about 17 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. And of course, if you want to call and tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 4523046. Again, 4523046. And you can also message in on our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. And earlier on, we were just having a bit of a recap of how things look with respect to the Israel-Hamas war, as it has been termed. And of course, it is quite an unfortunate situation whenever there is this level of conflict. And we know that this one has been very emotive. It has lots of, one can say, global repercussions as well in terms of politics, even in terms of the upcoming general election in the United States of America. It is, of course, a matter of concern for many individuals. The Muslim population, Islamic population within the United States has not seen quite favorably the actions of its government, of course, in this instance, and of course for the Jewish population in the U.S., also a major issue there. So certainly the implications have been real for a lot of places. And of course, if that big fear that the world's gas tank, that of the Middle East, if in fact there is a spread of conflict, that it may have potentially the impact on global energy supplies, the cost of energy, cost of fuel, all of those matters are feared. And of course, we've been seeing how some of those actually have been spreading in different ways, with ongoing conflicts having their implications. The situation in Syria, for example, that has been spanning on for quite some time. That, of course, has had significant impacts on migration, immigration issues in Europe, but in terms of trade as well, with Yemen and the matter of piracy in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, that region, those was the Straits of Hormuz, is it? There being a major area of concern in terms of piracy, and so there are certainly issues that we do need to pay special interest in from time to time. Now, right here over in St. Lucia, the matter of force and what that means sometimes, unfortunately, is used very loosely. And I think a caller sometime this week, in fact, raised that as a matter of concern. The rhetoric of political leaders, of political actors, certainly needs to be looked at with a level of care, because invariably our politicians are influential individuals on both sides. They command the support of thousands of individuals, and quite often these individuals look to them for direction and for support and for guidance. And so what the message is coming from our politicians is certainly very, very important. We've seen all around the world where that matter has been of major concern. The extreme, of course, is that you end up with the Nazis and the use of propaganda, and we've seen the result there. But it can even be even a January 6th type of situation, as we saw in the United States, witnessing the invading of the Congress and those types of actions, unfortunately, can get out of hand. Well, according to the St. Lucia Times, quoting what appears to me the UWP spokesperson, the line is, "We must force that government out of office." And just to share that story from the St. Lucia Times, the opposition United Workers' Party, UWP, has signaled its intention to step up efforts to demonstrate its displeasure with the Philip J. Pierre administration. UWP spokesman Leonard Spider-Montoute told an opposition town hall event on Saturday that St. Lucia was headless and in crisis. In this regard, the UWP public relations officer echoed the sentiments of the party's first deputy leader, Guy Joseph, who spoke earlier. Quote, "I'm beginning to feel the same way that Guy feels. We cannot wait for another 2 years. It means we have to begin to take action. And I am saying, let's start warming up for protest action. We must force that government out of office," Montoute declared. During the general elections of July 26, 2021, the electorate voted the WP administration under then Prime Minister and party leader Alan Chasney out of office. The UWP managed to retain 2 of the 11 seats it formerly had in the 17 seats parliament at the St. Lucia, as the St. Lucia Labour Party, SLP, with Philip J. Pierre at the helm, surged into office by a landslide. And of course, that coming from the St. Lucia Times, quoting some statements there by the party spokesperson and PRO, Mr. Leonard Montoute. One would like to believe, of course, that the word forced there was not really meant, but unfortunately, it is the word that he actually used. And we have to be very careful about that because, of course, people sometimes take things overboard and sometimes they take things to heart. And as I said, when it's coming from political actors, that language can lead to unfortunate situations. And this is certainly not something that I think we as a country can in any way afford. We've been speaking so much about the value of good sportsmanship, of being, affable, of respecting good governance. And if we're speaking about good governance, we therefore have to be respectful of the system of governance. Now, we all know that there's no perfect system around the world, and all systems have their faults, and no doubt about it. Right here in St. Lucia, we have a faulty system in terms of not just at the highest level in terms of the Constitution, but even in terms of how perhaps other things actually operate and work. And so that can be very, very, very frustrating, no doubt about it, for the average St. Lucian who may have to be interacting with public services or quasi-public services at times as well, and even private services that may not be sufficiently regulated to the liking of individuals. And so these things can raise a lot of frustration, in particular when people may feel that they're not being fairly treated or equitably treated. That too can raise lots of issues. I mean, it's exactly why we have to be very mindful of the matter of distribution of resources. Quite often you hear complaints being made by certain people that they may be discriminated against on the basis of geography, on the basis of where they live, right? You've heard that quite often people complain about rural divides. And we've heard, of course, about the political divides based on maybe if I find myself in a government led constituency, the MP is part of the ruling party versus whether the MP is part of the opposition party, that constituency gets different treatment, and the individuals coming from that constituency get different treatment. So we have to be very, very mindful of that, because that certainly does and can breed a lot of discontentment and frustration. And so certainly, comments like, well, we will only support our own, or we will only provide resources in constituencies that belong to us, or we will only give scholarships to people whose parents support one party or the other, whether they're yellow or red or purple or whatever the case may be. All of that, of course, is very, very, very dangerous, because it certainly can lead to a lot of discontentment. And so that's why it's really important to have, to some degree, universal types of programs that everybody, regardless of their race or where they live or their socioeconomic disposition, that they can all benefit. So when you look at a project like, let's say, the laptops program, where you say, well, all children can benefit, all of them are benefiting from that. Or maybe it could even be things like a minimum wage, which, although not everybody would be at that salary point, but it in fact has an effect of benefiting everybody, or all parts of the society regardless. And so it is very, very important that we seek to ensure that whatever systems that we are putting in place, that they in fact are about ensuring good service and good access to everybody, because it's a part of that system of good governance. But when you take it to the step that we're saying that, well, we are going to force the government out, and we cannot wait for another 2 years, you can see why that language seems to be a little bit too abrasive, and perhaps requires perhaps a rethink, and certainly at the very least some elucidation and explanation as to what is being meant there by the individual. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. Could you lower the volume of whatever you're listening to, please? Hello, caller.
Sorry. I was in the van and I tried to give you a call. Sorry about it.
Go right ahead.
I hear. And we just...
Yes, we are here. Go right ahead, caller. We're listening to you.
Yes, I see that about removing government check. Then thing don't make sense. Let me give you a small basic. We have to try to get, if we can get a Mia Motley, the Barbadian government, a page. That's how we can be government. When you say them things are check out, move government in power by force, that is just stupidity, because we have too much basic security and we not even touch it yet. And every day is a talk. You want to see an action. Action we have to have is to have machine. Get duties from machine so people can do things in here in St. Lucia. That's what we are talking about. Not anything about no strike. If they do that, they mustn't be in power again for the rest of their life. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Okay, thanks very much, caller. And have yourself a good day. We can end that call. Now, of course, I'm not 100% sure what he means by the machines part, but what I can say is that in today's world, maybe that must have been some sort of artificial intelligence clone of Mr. Montoute, because I really would not like to think that he actually made that kind of statement. And that's the thing right now, by the way. There are artificial intelligence clones that are They take your photos, they have a video of you, and they can effectively, if the device, the software learns your mannerisms, learns how you speak, your intonation, and it then uses that to, of course, with that video, and they can use the video now and to adapt for your voice and your what you're saying, and it can then be used to have conversations. And so they're saying that you can now, if you need to be in, say, for argument's sake, 3 virtual meetings at the same time, well, you could attend the most important one, whatever that might be, and your clones could actually attend the other meetings and represent you. And that's something that's happening now in the virtual space. It's becoming a major issue, because then, of course, goodness knows when they start cloning politicians, if it's not already being done, and the possibilities of them coming out and saying, well, their opponent said this and their opponent said that, and how quickly things spread on social media. Oh yeah, that can certainly be a major issue. But from all indications, I'm not sure that Mr. Montoute has a clone, and it appears that he may have made that unfortunate statement, which I think really needs to be tempered in this regard. One can appreciate that Mr. Montoute himself and his party have been in power in the past. In the last term of government, I think they went up for, is it 5 years and 2 months in office, which was in fact in and of itself unprecedented. There's never before had a government actually gone that far down in terms of a term. Not it's constitutional, because the Constitution does allow you to go beyond the 5 years to some extent, but of course there are limits to that, and that was in fact what was decided and chosen upon. So there is a constitution, and that constitution says, the winning side gets 5 years, and that's what they're afforded. And the prime minister is the only person who can therefore decide whether to shorten that, whether he in fact wants to call elections before that period of time. Most of the prime ministers of the past have called it usually somewhere between the 4.5 to 5 year period. In the case of Mr. Chastain in his term in office, he went beyond that. And hey, let's face it, I don't think there was any protest or public action to force the government to come out and to call the election. So there are lots of things there, and of course, let's face it, there is the banter, the political brinkmanship of asking, call the elections now. I dare you to do so. It's time to call elections, and then of course the ruling side will say, you know what, we're going to do it. You just better be careful. We're going to do it. And there is always that sort of fear. It is one of the realities of our system that we can in fact have elections at any time during that term, the term in office. We have not seen that change in the Constitution yet, and so therefore it is a reality that we have to deal with. But at the end of it all, really and truly, it still is very much up to the Prime Minister to determine that, if it is before the date, so to speak. Of course, this is not the first time that politicians will say that, this government is going to collapse. And we've heard that part, which is a little different from forcing a government to out of office. That's very, very different to say that, well, these guys won't last a year. You hear that sometimes because there's internal strife and internal division. That is usually, if anything, that occurs, that is what may end up bringing down or collapsing a government, if there's some internal issues. But here you have a situation, of course, of a very solid majority, well over absolute majority, being enjoyed by the sitting government. No indication of somebody resigning from the cabinet, no indication of individuals, some sort of a cabinet coup, nothing of the sort. And so to be suggesting that, we've got to force these guys out, I think is a little unfortunate to be utilizing that. As I mentioned in the past, I think at one point after the 1997 general election, then former Prime Minister Sir John Compton, in fact, said that there was that government was not going to last 2 years. And of course, it went on and it lasted 5 years, and it got re-elected after that. So that type of talk, certainly, I think we can do without. But we're over time today here at the Lunchroom, and we do hope that you enjoyed the program. And of course, you can join us again tomorrow for another one here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.